It's the end of work as you know it. Welcome to WorkEND, a Neurodiversity Podcast, a monthly panel discussion exploring the innovative world of neurodivergent individuals redefining work. Join us as we share unique perspectives, experiences, and ideas. Brought to you by Umbrella US and hosted by the fabulous Salena Gavin. This platform features candid conversations with neurodivergent self-advocates and allied community members. Gain firsthand insights into their journeys and discover how ND traits have become powerful assets while challenges continue to be present. Whether you're seeking belonging, inspiration, and new understanding, or aiming to create a more inclusive workspace, WorkEND, a Neurodiversity podcast, offers knowledge, personal stories, and actionable insights. Subscribe today to reshape your perception of work and expend energy in a brand new way.
Hi, everybody. AJ Locascio here. I am the founder and executive director at Umbrella US, and I am going to be hosting today because Salena needs to be absent today. So I am picking up that hosting role. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, I am AJ Locascio. I am a white, feminine presenting, genderqueer human being. I have black hair with a gray stripe in the front. I am wearing glasses that are black with a blue rim on the top, and headphones and a gray shirt. Behind me, you see a large plant, a multicolored water painting on the wall, and my bookshelves. This is a live discussion panel, and we want to provide an opportunity for you, the viewers, to participate in the discussion as our panelists discuss work in its many contexts. We invite you to actively participate in the comments section, and all comments will be valued and considered as we continue to work together toward our future success. Please remember that we embrace curiosity and invite different perspectives and opinions. We ask that everyone remember that we are all at different levels of knowledge and experience. We can have positive and compassionate discussions even when we do not agree. So let's get started. Our panelists today are Isabel Azevedo, Jonathan Orlak, and Jana Curtis. Each comes to the table with their own experience and expertise. We very much look forward to hearing what each of them has to say. Let's get to know each other. Um, Isabel, thank
Hi,
you for being with us today. Tell
thank
us a bit about
you.
yourself.
Let me just describe. So I am a Caucasian female. I'm wearing a red glasses, red frame glasses. I have brown with some gray hair. I'm wearing a hoodie from Friends, which says "I wish I could, but I don't want to." From Phoebe. And my background has some bookshelves with some books, some DVDs, some arts, a microphone, a camera, photo, lots of things going on back there. But yes, I'm Isabel. I am a creative. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a visual storyteller. And current also a student, even though I'm in my 30s. um, but I am a content creator as well on Cloudful TV, and I'm currently working on a documentary about dysautonomia in pods after COVID. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And you gave us a link, which I put in comments here for a GoFundMe, which is for helping you get your documentary underway. And this is actually helping you with, it's a school project that you're doing, and it has deadlines and it needs to get done. And you're paying for all of this out of your own
I
pocket.
am.
Okay,
I am. I am
awesome.
going to Kentucky next month somehow, and the help is actually to help me with the accommodations because since I have to travel to meet with these patients, right, to film them, I that's why I'm like trying to see if people can help me because it's kind of expensive.
Okay, great. So I
Thank
put
you.
that in comments so people can find that in comments. And if they need to, they can message you or message us,
Yes,
and we will get that information to them. So
thank
thank
you.
you so much for being with us today, Isabel. I am going to invite Jonathan on. Hi,
Hello.
Jonathan. Welcome. Tell us about yourself.
I am also a Caucasian individual, male. I go by he, him. I have a lot of hair on my head and on my face. Fortunately, not so much on the back, mostly maintaining it on the face. Behind me is a mostly white wall with a couple pictures of my daughter and a cactus she painted for me when she was very young. Um, Other than that, I am wearing a shirt from my beloved Blazers and wearing a black, red, and white striped shirt.
Awesome. Fabulous. And um, you are a research chemist, correct?
That's correct. I'm a research chemist. I do R&D chemistry. I've done it in a variety of fields. Right now, I'm working on trying to make cement a little bit less toxic and carbon intensive for our environment. It's been an interesting journey to get here. It's not quite as creative. I definitely don't get to go travel around and make films, but I do get to travel around and go to interesting conferences and meet other scientists.
Right on. Very cool. And that is super important to the ND community who so many of us suffer from environmental changes and it affects us. So thank you for that work that you are doing to help us all feel a little bit better and safer in this world. I am going to bring in Jana. Hi,
Hello.
Jana.
Um,
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello. My name is Jana Curtis. I'm a light olive-skinned woman with brown hair and green eyes. I'm wearing a coral-colored sweater, and I'm sitting in my home office. I'm a human-centered product designer by trade. I do user experience design or research and design, interaction design, and I've done a lot of independent study on subjects of neuroscience, psychology, human behavior, relationships, etc. Both for professional and personal reasons. So,
Right on. Awesome. So much. We have such a diverse group here. Awesome. I love it. I will also say right now, I do not have a light shining in my face. I am here to normalize not having lights shining in our faces. So when I come on camera, sometimes the background is a little bit dark. It doesn't look beautiful and professional and all of that. And I am okay with that because I would rather have that than have a headache at the end of it. Um, and, and I think that that is perfectly normal and okay. So thank you all again for being here today. We are going to get into our panel discussion. What this will look like is we're going to have about 45 to 50 minutes. We'll spend about 15 minutes on each question, give or take time based on how much y'all talk and what you need to say. If you don't need that time, then we won't use that time. We'll save it for the end or for another question. We will have about 5 minutes per question where we will rotate and go in an order. Just for the audience, so all of this information has been given up front. So I am saying this information again. I know I'm going kind of quickly for our panelists, but we have seen this. We've gone over it in individual sessions. We went over it again this time. We have it in writing. So this has been an inclusive and accessible introduction to what we're doing today. So I just want to say that for anybody who's listening, who might want to come on as a panelist, this is not the first time that they are hearing this information. They have been prepared. And if you do decide to come on, you as well will have that preparation in advance. Okay, back to what I was saying. We'll spend 5 minutes per question. If you get to the 4-minute mark, I will let you know by holding up a finger that you have 1 minute left to close up your thoughts. If at the end of that minute we get where you're still talking, I may interrupt you and say, we really need to go on, or let's finish up the thought. And then we'll go on to the next person, not because what you have to say is not important, but because we do want to stay within our time limits and honor everybody's time. So with that, it is time to ask the question. So exciting. I'm having fun being a host today. Can you tell? So the first question we're going to ask is for Isabel. And Isabel, tell us about work. What does it mean to you? And maybe what are optimal working conditions?
So work for me means not necessarily something that I can make money with. For me, work is anything that brings me joy. And, for me, what that is right now is storytelling is something that I see as the thing that I if when people say if money was no object, what would you do? And that's what I think my thing is. Not because I want it to be, but because I feel like I feel called by it. And that's what I feel like work should be, should feel like. It's not necessarily something that you make money only out of, right? As in we were talking about it like yesterday. There's a difference between work and a job, right? Um, and for me, that's what it would be. It would be something that not necessarily is my how something that I make a live with. It's something that I enjoy doing, and hopefully, very like super hopefully, it will also help me financially speaking, right? Like give me that security as we talked about, like, yeah. So that's what I think work is. And I know that it's also a privilege that not everybody get that privilege of like actually doing the work that's meaningful to them. But yeah, my optimal working conditions are, well, for now it's a little hard for me because I do have POTS and autonomia and EDS and like a whole combo of a situation. So for me, a day that I don't have a flare with those conditions, that would be my optimal working conditions. As long as I'm doing kind of okay. I don't even want to be doing great. I just want to be doing okay. And that would be like, for me, that's my optimal working condition. And, and also some place that I get to be myself. I don't have to hide my my little things, like I don't have to be like not moving on the chair. Like that's very important for me. I don't have to put makeup on because that's not my thing. This is also something as a neurodivergent person, that's what I think would be great work conditions.
That sounds like great work conditions. I like those. That's why I like working for myself. We have a couple of minutes left and with your time. And so since we do, you mentioned POTS, dysautonomia, and EDS, which I dropped those in the comments for anybody wanting to look at those. But could you just give us a little bit about those since you're disclosing?
Yes, I'll try my best to do it quickly. So EDS is a condition of the connective tissue. So everything in your body is made of connective tissue, including your organs, right? So that condition affects basically everything. And there are like 14 types. Mine is the hypermobile one, which is not proof in genetic tests yet. With the EDS comes other comorbidity. Oh, I don't know how to say it. Comorbidities. Cute accent. Hashtag cute accent. So one of those is dysautonomia, which I didn't really experience. I experienced some of it, but I didn't experience POTS, which is under the umbrella of dysautonomia. I didn't experience POTS until after COVID, right? So POTS is under the umbrella of dysautonomia, which dysautonomia is a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, which is our nervous system that takes care of everything that's involuntary, right? And POTS it's called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So from the name, it's like postural orthostatic. So changing posture will increase your heart rate, or even sometimes, rarely, drop it. But that's not the only thing that it is. It messes up with a lot of like our systems and blood pressure, blood sugar, temperature dysregulation. When I started this, it was 32 degrees outside. I would be fine without anything, like naked outside, 32 degrees, I would be fine, which is dangerous because you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, did I cover it?
Thank you. Yes, that was. We will put links to these in the chat for everybody so that people can look these up if they want to. But I'm glad that you talked about this because we like people to understand that neurodiversity has a huge range, right? So including people who are neurotypical, we have all of these things that are not considered neurotypical, and dysautonomia, EDS, POTS, all of these different things are different ways in which our brains interact or create a space for us to interact with our environment.
If I can add one thing, I'm autistic and ADHD, and I don't think I mentioned that, but it is very common actually for autistic people to also have EDS. We don't know yet why. The cause is not yet proven. It's not even proven that there is like a link there, but it has been shown that many autistic people actually have EDS.
Right. There tend to be many, many connections. So thank you for that quick education that you gave us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on to Jonathan. The same question. What does work mean to you, and what is an optimal working environment? There we go.
You go. Work is something that I do either to thrive or survive, right? When she's talking about going to a job, mostly jobs are to survive. Something that you do whether you really want to or not, I guess, at a certain point. I have been blessed or worked really hard, one of the two, to get into a position where I can do things that I really want to do. I spend my time reading a lot of chemistry books and talking to other people about how we can do all these ridiculous things that we want to do, trying to change the world a little bit at a time. And it's been a privilege to get to do it. It's been a lot of work, but I feel like, outside of the generic use of the word privilege, I have certain privileges that I have earned in life beyond that. Put in a lot of hours, put in a lot of years to get to a point where I can kind of do the things that I want to do. I still have to do them in places I don't necessarily want to be, but that's something that comes in more, I guess, to the second half of the question. While I was going to school, I didn't consider that work, but at the same time, we were buying and flipping houses, and that definitely was work, but I still enjoyed it. It was, is it something you enjoy? Yeah, I loved working on it. I loved doing all the construction, building things and taking things apart, but it's definitely work. My body today is saying, yes, I agree with you. That was all a lot of work. It was a great experience, but school never felt like work. School felt like fun every second I was there. And just thinking about what you guys were talking about in the podcast I was watching earlier, where all these restrictions on school, and I never even really noticed them because I think after a while in the science courses, everybody is just sitting there with their jaw hitting the table, trying to figure out what the words are at the front on the board. Like, what is he talking about? So yeah. I mean, work is something that has a goal, I think, is a good way to put it. Work has a goal. Everything else is enjoyment.
Love that. So did school have a goal?
School had a goal. It started out with a different goal. Halfway through, I had a little nervous breakdown because I realized I didn't want to do it. I went to go do some observation hours for nuclear medicine, and it was awful. It was awful. It was like McDonald's for cancer patients in the drive-through. It was the worst experience I've ever had, and I had a little nervous breakdown. And I was sitting there with another student, showing them how to do dimensional analysis, converting, from moles to grams or whatever. And he's like, "Why aren't you studying chemistry?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have a good answer."
Was that when everything changed for you right then?
It was one of life's changes, but at that point, you talk about being in school at 30 something. I believe at that point I was 34 or 35. So lots of things had changed along the way before that. But yeah, that was where I remembered that this is what I love to do, and got back into it. It was definitely, obviously, it's one of those things that I don't want to admit how many years later it's still with me, because it was a life-changing moment. Just an offhand comment from somebody I was helping in a study hall in a community college.
Wow, that's great. See, when we think that we can't change somebody's life by, one small interaction, that just shows that you really can.
Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
that. So optimal working conditions for you.
Oof. I like to describe the place I work to my friends and family as a place that believes it is still 1985. They have this alarm that goes off and it tells people that it's time to go to lunch and come back from lunch. And I refuse to do any of that. So when we come back to those privileges we were talking about, everyone else there has to pretty much be there all the time and do all the things. And I have a desk where I sit surrounded by a bunch of engineers. And this may sound strange coming from a guy who's a chemist, but engineers are kind of weird. And so like they have their weird and chemists have our weird. And there's only one of me and there's like 30 of them. So I feel very outnumbered, but I also have a lab that I've built and I get to go hide out there. And I also have the freedom to really kind of leave the office that other people don't have. Basically, at this point in my career, I don't really care if you want to fire me for needing to leave the office, then you can go ahead and do that. But there's no one else in the organization that can do my job at this point without them spending a lot more money. So your choice. Either I get to leave 15 minutes early so I can go be on a panel, or or I don't. Either way, I'm going to leave. Which is really, I suppose, a bad attitude, but I think I am significantly older than everyone else here today. And I don't know that I have a bad attitude. I definitely have an attitude. I need it. If I can't leave work and go do other things, come home, sit with my daughter's pictures, and you can't see it, but I have my whole workstation here. I work 10 times better sitting in my little apartment at my workstation than I do at work. I'll sit there and just, for 4 hours, which is literally, I think, what I did today. I think I wasted about 4 hours staring at a screen because I didn't want to be there and I couldn't focus on anything. And eventually I said, well, it's 3:30. I can excuse myself now and just go get ready for doing the presentation. So an ideal work environment is where people actually understand that is how I work better. They do understand to a certain extent because I also work with another crazy engineer, this 75-year-old guy in Japan who hits me up at 10 o'clock at night to ask me questions about chemistry. So if I have to do that, then I can leave once in a while. And while they don't grief me about doing it, there's been no tacit acceptance. Instead of just saying, we understand that you're getting all your work done and we understand that this works for both of us, we're just not going to talk about it. Which is 1985 all over again. We're just not going to talk about it.
We're just not going to talk about it. As long as you're getting your stuff done, we're going to leave you alone.
Exactly.
And you know what? It would be nice if they did that for more people all over in all of these different places. So for all you employers out there, you see how it works? It's that simple. Thanks so much, Jonathan. All right, Jana, same question for you. Let me pull you off of mute here. Here we go.
Thank you.
Question. Yeah. Tell us about work. What does it mean to you and optimal working environments?
So to me, work is kind of a neutral word. That it's neither good nor bad. It just to me, it means effort, like something that you put an effort towards, because you could say that sounds like a lot of work. And that could be like, oh, that sounds like a lot of effort. Or, what's that thing you're working on? Like it's a personal project. It's really fun. It's something I want to do. Or you go to the gym to work out. But it's like, an intentional effort. And then to me, a job is like when you're doing work for an employer, and like when you're doing work to get money, because it may not necessarily be for with an employer, but when you're doing work for the purpose of getting your income so that you can survive. And that doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but sometimes it is, because it makes you vulnerable to what employers can do to you, or to whether or not the market is good or bad. And also, to me, a career is, or occupation is like the work that, the type of work that you do for a living. And then your career is what type of work have you done in the past. And so profession is like, what skills do you profess to be good at doing for work? And I was thinking about these things because last year I had a conversation with my husband, who was miserable at his job. And I had just got a big raise, and I was trying to convince him to quit his miserable job. I did the calculations to figure out if we could live off one income. And he asked me, like, was it fair for me to quit my miserable job when you your job too, don't you? And I was just like, yeah, I do kind of hate my job, but his job, the nature of the occupation had changed, so that, or the nature of the work had changed in ways that he didn't have any control over. So it wasn't just like the employer and working conditions that he didn't like, but he wouldn't be able to continue doing the same profession, and it might be hard to find another one, and he was miserable at that. And I said, I love my profession. Like, I love the kind of work that I'm good at doing. I don't love that working for this employer in these conditions that I'm being subjected to. And so to me, that's my relationship with how I think about work and all those things. For me, optimal working conditions that I have had in the past, and I hope to find a new job to have again, because I got a big raise last year, and then I was let go a few months ago, and I'm suffering the horrible job market right now. For me, optimal working conditions are, I think it would be ideal for any employee that whatever possible autonomy, freedom, comfort the nature of the job can allow, I think that should be afforded to all employees. If the job can be done remotely, let employees choose where they work. If the job can be done, if it has to be done on site, but it can be done while wearing headphones, let them listen to music if they want to. If the job can be done seated, then let people sit down if they want to. But like, whatever freedoms and comforts the job can possibly allow, like, just give people the autonomy, treat them like people and not property, and allow them to do that. And that would be, to me, would be optimal working conditions. And I've had that in the past in some circumstances briefly, and it was amazing. And it was amazing for not just for me, but for my colleagues that I was working with. And it worked well. Like, I've heard a lot of employers complain that that hybrid is too hard, and that remote work is too hard to support when some people want to be in office, but it's not. Like, in my experience, I've worked on teams where I've been among the people that were present in the office, and I've been among the people that were remote. And during the times when we chose to intentionally include the people that were remote, when the people that were together in the office chose to include remote people, it was really easy to do so. And even in my personal life, my husband hosts
You're getting a lot of claps over here.
Oh,
from the audience. I've got another screen over here, and it's just like people are just clapping.
Oh, cool. I can't see that. But just even in our personal life, my husband hosts a tabletop RPG game on Wednesday nights, and our friends come over, and one of our friends got a job in another location, and he moved away, not to his job. I think he can do remotely, but he moved away to be closer to his long distance girlfriend. But he still wanted to be part of our group, and he was willing to join remotely. So we just started including him remotely every week. And it's not hard, because everyone just chooses to include him and not exclude him from the conversations, not pretend like he isn't here, not talk over him, and to like keep making sure he's included in the conversation. If we can do that in our personal life out of our own free will, like, it's really not hard to do in a professional setting. So, and I've seen it both ways. Yes, intention is key. I see that in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Intention is key, and I will attest to the ease of being able to include people. We're a military family, and my son was clear across the world, and we were able to continue our D&D as a family game remotely. And if you can do that and continue that, if it's good enough for family, it's good enough for the workplace, right?
Yeah.
One would think. Anyway, thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next question. And this question we're going to start with Jonathan.
Okay.
All right. So when we talk about neurodivergence and work, one of the big topics is energy. So when we talk about energy, what does that look like for you? And what does recovery look like when you need it?
So what consumes the most energy for me is social interactions. Interpersonal social interactions are extraordinarily draining. I can spend all day in a lab farting around and walk out feeling as fresh as when I walked in. But if yesterday I had to go spend an hour and a half with my manager so he could tell me, what I'm doing right and wrong, or talk about, I don't know, general things. And afterwards, I was just exhausted. And I think I am still today from that, because it was just wearing. We didn't achieve anything, but at the end of it, I was completely wiped out. Sorry, the crocheting. I remember you talking about that.
STEM mags.
So that's definitely always been the hardest thing for me is to put on the face that we go into work and, be professional and interact and pretend to like the people you don't like, and to expend the energy to like the people you do like. And there are always going to be both, especially when you're forced to go into an office, whether you need to be there or not. So that's really, really exhausting for me. And I'm older than I care to think about. And the ways that I used to deal with it was to take a vacation and go way out in the middle of the desert, with a friend or two or family, and hide out and know that I am not within several miles of another human being, and be completely, completely happy doing that. It gets harder and harder to do that. And my short trips on motorcycles or going snowboarding was just, when you're doing something that you have to focus or you're going to die. So you have no choice but to put all of your brain on this one thing, or bad things will happen. I can push everything else away, because otherwise it's constantly spinning. The top never stops spinning. And so as I'm getting older and older, and it's harder and harder to do these things that I found to be that enjoyable, it gets harder for me to find ways to recover the energy. It gets harder and harder to bring it back to the levels that people expect you to do every day, day in and out, which I never really understood, because nobody can do that every day. That's it's an unrealistic expectation that
Yes,
every day you're going to get up and you're going to go.
Right.
I think everybody's answer is going to be relatively similar, in that it's like your life meter in a game, or your sprint meter when you're playing video games. And when it's down, can you just stand there and have it come back? I can't. I need to find places that are beautiful and alone to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I love the game meter. That's one of my favorite. I'm not going to get too excited about this, but I do a whole presentation using that game meter, talking about our own belief systems and values, and the energy that we expend trying to hide those often, right? And then we can get into that conversation of, if you are lucky enough to be able to spend the money to buy the extra stuff on the game so that you can just give yourself some more hearts and lives, well, great for you. But all of those other people who don't have that extra money or those extra resources to spend to buy those, they don't get to have as much fun on the game. And isn't that funny how games and life can be so very similar? So that was a brilliant little piece that you brought in there, because it really truly is like that. Yes, brilliance. That is, it's all around you, surrounding you. Okay, so the next, Jana, same question for you. I didn't change the banner. I'm so used to doing this from the background, y'all. Thank you for understanding when I make mistakes. Jana, the same question for you is talk to us about energy and energy recovery. What is that for you?
I think like going back to the answer for the previous question, in ideal working conditions, like different types of interactions they have different weights. Like they incur different amounts of energy expense, and for different people, some people find certain types of interactions more draining than others. And I recently saw an article that was talking about how Zoom calls are less engaging. That they did like some brain studies, and they were showing your social parts of the brain aren't lighting up as much in the like when you're on a Zoom call as like when you're in an in-person meeting. And I'm like, who says that's a bad thing? Like you're telling me that when you're in person, it costs more mental energy, and the social part of your brain is working harder to be acceptable in a social setting, and you're not thinking as much about the topics you're discussing. So I think that in ideal working conditions, like people have the autonomy to choose, they could choose to do things that are less draining. They could choose to communicate in ways where they don't have as much energy that they need to recover, because they don't necessarily need to expend so much energy all the time. And then for me, I guess personally, recovering energy, a lot of times, like what is most draining is a lot of those social interactions. Communication is risky for neurodivergent people, because we run a risk of breaking or offending invisible social rules that we're not always aware of, and people like jumping to conclusions and taking offense to things that aren't our fault. And so it's very stressful having to navigate that and have to constantly be wondering, am I like trying to do, preemptive damage control and people pleasing to make sure everybody's okay? That's exhausting. And like just wondering about like, how am I presenting myself? How am I showing up? Are people getting upset with something I've said or did or failed to say or do? So whenever I get home, I would love to do like more fun things with my friends or family who give me graces. It's less draining to hang out with people who don't have the power to harm you if they get offended, which is how I lost my job. So someone was like a manager was offended by something I didn't do well enough, or that I didn't do things to make them feel important enough. And yeah, it's just like that sort of stuff is something I'm like afraid of all the time in work situations, and it makes them a lot more stressful and draining. And whereas with friends and family, sometimes it can be like when you're with people who accept you, and you can just be yourself, you can unmask, like sometimes that can be recovery, sometimes that can be refreshing, but sometimes it's just like quiet time alone, or sometimes I'm just so exhausted I just want to lay down and sleep.
Yep. And you and I talked the other day, and you said I had to do this thing and I was working on it all weekend. So I put myself into that this weekend. I took today off and I went to the gym this morning. So for you, work, as in working out, is also recovery.
Oh, I didn't go to the gym. I would use my Nintendo Ring Fit Adventure in the living room. That's my
That
work.
is fantastic.
I played
love
a
it.
workout video game.
Yes. That's even better. That's even better. That's the best work right there. Okay, very cool. All right, we're going to move on to Isabel. Isabel, talk to us about energy and energy recovery.
I'm going to take a different approach here because I agree with everything that Jonathan and Janet said. I feel the same way. Like social interactions are draining, and sometimes it depends on the person. Like when we talked yesterday, you and me, AJ, I was actually energized. Not because it was on Zoom only, but because it was something where I felt comfortable being myself. But what I wanted to talk about in this case here is how the neurodivergences that I have interact with each other. So because I am autistic and ADHD, and it's already hard for us to live in this planet, on this planet, because it wasn't built for us, right? Society doesn't accept us as who we are. On top of that, I have the dysautonomia and the EDS, but like specifically the dysautonomia, which it drains your energy even more. And on top of that, there is for me, I struggle a lot with executive dysfunctioning. And it's just that thing where, because of this autonomia, for me, at least for my symptoms, I have to be planning my day so much. There's like, a friend of mine told me, there's no room for being spontaneous anymore. And that's something that I miss a lot, not only because my ADHD and my autistic personalities inside my head, they fight a lot, right? Because I do seek order, but I also need the chaos. In my life right now, the dysautonomia took over the chaos, and I have no more room to have that chaos that was actually fun. Because let's be honest, for many ADHDers, the chaos is fun.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We love it. Okay.
Yep.
And it's just the thing that, like, because of the something called reactive hypoglycemia that I have to be eating every 2 hours, right? Like, I go to bed, I'm eating crackers at 11 p.m. In bed, so I don't wake up at 3 a.m. Last night, I actually forgot to do that, and I woke up at 3 a.m. To eat.
Even after our conversation about that.
I know.
It happens.
Exactly, right? Like, here and there I will forget, because I ate at like 9:30, like 10 o'clock, I think. So I thought, I think I'm fine. I wasn't, because I woke up at 3. Low blood sugar, right? So those things together, they interact in a way that it's like my energy, and it's something that I am trying to accept, like working on constantly to accept that my level of energy, I still have that level of energy. However, I can't use it, right? Like, I just can't use it. And at the same time, I'm using so much more energy just to like be aware of like how I'm getting up, right? Like, I'm going to be exhausted after this because I'm talking. Like, I love talking, and talking exhausts me way more than exhausts other people, because it's just how my body is working right now. Like, I have blood circulation issues. I don't even know why. And like all these little things. And yeah, brain fog, which I'm starting to get. I know. The brain fog is the worst part, because sometimes I just forget things that I don't even know how you can forget. Like, what's your phone number? I'm like, I don't know one of them. One number is missing. And I don't know how it disappeared, like names that I know, and somehow I can't remember those. It's like I'm literally trying to retrieve the information, and I call myself an unreliable hard drive now. Like I say, my brain's it's an unreliable hard drive. But it's just like, it's so much more energy that that it takes for us, right? Like, as autistic and ADHDers, and then you put on the top of that, you put the dysautonomia, and then it's just like, I don't know if I can curse here, but it's just like
Yes,
an show. It's a shit show, basically.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's just trying to accept. And with that said, the recovery for me looks a lot like it depends. Today, to not be too tired to talk to you guys, I actually ate dinner, got tachycardia, because sometimes that happens. My brain doesn't know how to prioritize digestion and, the rest of the body. So I got tachycardia. So I said, okay, I'm going to lie down. So I lay down, and I stayed in bed for like almost 2 hours, doing absolutely nothing. And I think I took a nap for like 20 minutes, maybe. Don't know. Have no idea what I was doing. I was just dissociating there. And then I got up and I showered, and I got tired, and I was like, oh my God.
It sounds like recovery is work.
It is. And that's I think that's something that I'm also trying to accept,
Yeah.
The level of like disability that I got to, that like slowed me down so much. And I think that's the other thing that I'm like really like working on very hard in therapy, including to accept that.
Right.
But recovery sometimes can be like listening to music a little bit, which I also have to be careful doing, as all of us might, just because of that sensory input that we are getting, right? Like to not get overstimulated.
Yep.
Yeah, but recovery is work.
Yep.
It's a job.
Yeah.
Mobility
Recovery is a job.
a part-time job or a full-time job. Sometimes I feel like mine is like a full-time job.
Yep. And I would say that's not just for neurodivergent folks. Recovery, self-care, it is work. It is a job. It is something that you have to do intentionally. So anybody who's listening who is not neurodivergent or who doesn't identify as neurodivergent, think about, we understand that it is work for you. So if you just take that and add to it,
Mhm.
then you can kind of understand and have some of that empathy for what we go through when we are having to decide how we recover from our interactions, and the work that we do throughout the day. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next question. And this one is going to be for Jana first. Jana, oh, I think you have to unmute yourself. I can't unmute you. Tell us about a time when you have felt overlooked, disregarded, stereotyped, when working in any context. So it could be at school, it could be at home, it could be at work, any kind of work, not just a job.
I'd say like earliest that I can remember was like during grade school, being stereotyped. I think like maybe not as much stereotyped as teachers jumping to conclusions about my behaviors, so that they knew that I was a smart student. They knew that I was capable of doing a good job and capable of understanding things. So when I would occasionally like fail to like hear some instructions that were given, I didn't follow them because I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know that I wasn't paying attention. I would miss things and just fail to comply with certain things occasionally. And because it was occasionally and not like constantly consistent, they weren't like, you're a troublemaker kid. They were just like, you are being deliberately defiant. And like the way that they would get like so offended by it and like think that I was being lazy, that was really stressful growing up and caused me a lot of anxiety that I'm still like trying to unlearn today. But I have like this super deep internal subconscious fear that I might get in trouble for something I missed. Like I've called it like the information gaps. And I think that experience caused me to get really good at why I'm good at my job of like being able, learning how to ask the right questions to try to like fill in the gaps for that. But that was like my earliest time of remembering being like stereotyped or disregarded or being like somebody jumping to conclusions. And then as I got older, even friends would sort of stereotype me as being all these like adjective words that I always hated being applied to me, like dingy, airheaded, like scatterbrained, like and it was because of something that I couldn't help. And I knew that I couldn't help it, but I didn't know that I had ADHD. I didn't know it was a medical condition. And when I was a kid, I was always heard adults saying that ADHD didn't exist, or in the area that I grew up, or that it was just a ploy so that doctors could prescribe drugs that would zombify children who never learned how to behave. And so I knew ADHD was real. I witnessed classmates who literally couldn't control themselves and get up and wander around the room. I didn't have that problem. I could sit still in my seat. I trained myself to track people with my eyes, even when my ears stopped paying attention. So I didn't know that applied to me. And so I didn't want to believe that I had ADHD because I was scared of the thought that I might have a medical condition that couldn't be solved. And so I wanted to believe that I was normal and people would just call me an airhead or scatterbrained and think less of me. I was treated like I was less competent. And then in the workplace, I still had to fight that stereotype of being treated like I'm batty, like, I don't know, crazy, scatterbrained, maybe not crazy as much as just that disorganized scatterbrained and people thinking that you're stupid and that you're irresponsible and can't handle things. And then when I learned that I had ADHD and I started taking medication, I suddenly had the ability to learn some skills that I wasn't able to learn as a child. So like even right now, I'm not on medication currently. I'm able to do a lot better than I was prior to having taken it. And so I tend to not disclose to employers because I witnessed a coworker who did mention having ADHD, and he was treated like he was stupid. He was treated like he was irresponsible, and like he was clinically incapable of being able to handle responsibilities. And people were dismissive of him. And I live in a state that's like at will employment. And that means that an employer can fire you for any reason. So it's a loophole that employers can easily fire you for discriminatory reasons, and they don't have to say their reason for firing you. So yeah, it's really scary. And so I tend to only like disclose to coworkers that I trust, and mostly rely on masking or trying to, I don't ask for official accommodations. I try to like ask for accommodations without saying that they're accommodations. But that's been my experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I will tell you that there are some comments here. I put one up from Rowena. She said, "You are normal. You are you." And also another comment there was that this is a very affirming conversation that is happening. So thank you so much for sharing that. It is helping. It helps to be seen. So we're going to move on and turn it over to Isabel. Can you talk to us about a time when you have felt dismissed or overlooked, stereotyped because of neurodivergence?
Well, it's hard to pick a time because I actually have like CPTSD on being dismissed. And to Janice, what she said, like growing up not knowing that you were ADHD or that you were autistic or both, or other types of neurodivergences, it's pretty hard because it comes with not knowing, comes with not understanding why you behave certain way or certain things happen to you. And for me, it's that my level of perception is so high. It's like I don't even know how to explain how my perception is so high like that. And for me, what I say, it's a blessing and it's a curse. It just depends on who I'm talking to, or and when I say that I'm afraid of what it's going to come out of my mouth, it's because of that perception, I see things that other people don't see. And I'm not talking about ghosts. I'm talking about situations, things that can happen, right? And I'm so good at like strategy and prevention that I just want to help people. But what I learned, and I actually built a shield because of it, and I'm not proud of it, but I had to, is that people don't want to know the truth. That's what I learned. People don't want to know the truth, even when they ask you to tell them. People don't want honesty, right? And most of the time, they won't believe you. It doesn't matter. They won't believe you. And I really built a shield to protect myself. And there is nothing that triggers me the most than being dismissed, because this is how I felt my whole life. I was dismissed my whole life. And I know that we talk a lot about like gaslighting from doctors. And I'm like, gaslighting from doctors, actually, I didn't have a lot of that, like with my current situation. I had, but not a lot, like I see with the people that I interviewed, right, already for my documentary. It's ridiculous. But for me, it's actually gaslighting in other, like my whole life with my family, even my family, and like everybody else, right? And it triggers me a lot. So I can't really tell you like one specific situation, but I can tell you that this type of situation has happened to me so much since I was a child that it got me to the point where it's CPTSD. And it got to the point where I just decided to build a shield and not tell anybody anymore, and just let them excuse my French, fuck themselves. That's what I decided I was going to do. Unless you specifically tell me, yes, you can be yourself with me, and I want you to be honest with me. Otherwise, I'm just going to let you F yourself. Right? And there's another question, right? No, that's it.
No,
Yeah.
that was it. That was it.
Thank you for letting me take these out of my chest on like live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, we do absolutely allow cursing on here. And here's the reason. Unless it is specifically addressed at one person and it's an attack on somebody, then it is simply just a way to release some energy, usually some energy that doesn't necessarily feel good. And sometimes it feels good and we cuss because it feels good, but often it's a lot of energy that is built up. And in saying that word, it releases some of that energy. So, as a neurodivergent group, yes, there will be curse words on here, and we are not going to put a beep over the top of it. So, that's that. We are cursing is self-expression, now trending. Leela's doing our hashtags for us. That's great. I love it. This is something that we should do when we have the amount of people to come in and do the moderations. We'll have a great trending hashtags going too. So thank you so much. Thank you. I'm gonna spend this over to Jonathan.
I just like to say it's really interesting to hear both of your perspectives, and to hear how it mirrors a little bit of mine, but also a little bit different. I grew up in a different age, and we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about doing the presentation here. When I was a kid, any type of diagnosis was basically a death sentence for any type of educational or career or anything. So basically, you're just shy or strange or weird or whatever, different. But that was better than getting a diagnosis, which means you would get treatment, but also means that your life would be shut down. And growing up in the 70s and 80s were not very compassionate to different types of people of any type of difference. So the diagnoses that you have are difficult, but at least you know. I mean, I spent the first 30 years of my life basically not achieving anything because I couldn't maintain focus more than 5 minutes. When you talk about, the situations where you're dealing with people, I have difficulty remembering people, names and faces. I don't know why. I can remember numbers and facts and figures and ridiculous things from history or whatever, but I can't remember people. And people assume that you're lying. You're telling them something that's not true. How could you not remember me or this person or that person? And it's not a personal thing. I just don't know why I can't do it. And it just doesn't stick. So that upsets people immensely. And that's always a difficult situation. As far as things that happen in life further on in career at work is one, and I'm probably going to curse here a little bit. I worked for a company. I left a job where I was appreciated and they recognized the skills and talents that I brought, and they were happy to have me there, but I could see the company was going under. Software is like that. And so I took a job getting back into chemistry, and the guy who hired me was super enthusiastic. He's like, yeah, I can't wait to have you start. You're taking over for another chemist. I later found out within 2 weeks that the last chemist, who had been there 25 years, walked in out flipping off the manager, telling him to go fuck himself. And I was like, well, did I make a horrible mistake? And about 6 months later, I had acknowledged fully that I had made a horrible mistake. He spent the next 6 months trying to just make my life a living hell, and I don't know why. I mean, I know I'm different. I got along with everyone else there pretty much. They would say to me things like, I don't know why he's not doing this. You're supposed to be traveling. You're supposed to be doing this. He's not doing it. And every day he would just make my life worse. One day he told me a story about some other employee that tried to get him in trouble with HR and how he ruined their life. And instead of reacting as I should have, I just kept trying to work harder. And I eventually ended up having a complete breakdown, ending up in a hospital where they, I wanted to die at that moment. I didn't really want to die. I just didn't want to be there anymore, but I felt trapped, boxed in. I had a family, a child. I was like, how am I gonna, support my family and do the things that I need to do? I can't, in my mind, I can't just walk away. That is 100% what I should have done. I should have just walked away. Instead, I lost a year of my life recovering from that. And what I should have done is, even though HR is not there for you, they're not your friend, they're not there to help you. I should have gone to HR. I should have called the fucking corporate main office. I should have burned that motherfucker to the ground. I should have ruined his life before I let him ruin mine. And so I'll bring this up because I know that, maybe not you guys, but maybe other people are going to experience this. And when you're making thank you, April. When you're making that decision as to what you're going to do, you're just going to knuckle down and work harder and hope that the changes. They're not going to change. They're just going to keep making you miserable. And instead of letting it ruin your life, you make the decision to walk away, however you do it. But I would have liked to destroy his life so he couldn't do that to someone else. Because if you're telling me that you did this to someone in California, now you're here in Oregon and doing it to me, it took years for it to click that this is, they probably moved him like a priest, molesting children from one place to another. And, God knows where he is now and whose life he's ruining. So, that's the hardest thing, I think, is to understand. Like, other people, I think, might have seen right away, this guy just wants to ruin my life. And I had spent the last many years being appreciated for the work that I do. And so I couldn't see it. And I wish that I had been able to. I wish that somebody had pointed it out to me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. All three of you have had comments and people sending lots of hearts and support through your shares. And this is why we are here, because every time that we share something, other people feel seen. Other people feel like they have community and that they are not alone. And that is so, so, so very important. So I want to thank all three of you for that. Does anybody have any closing? Does anybody have any closing comments or questions that they would like to ask before we close out for the night?
I'll just say it again. I really appreciated hearing both of your points of view. It was enlightening and appreciated.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, because I think you felt a little bit, as you were sharing that, I think you felt that a little bit back. Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
That.
I enjoyed meeting both of you and hearing your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do want to point out, and this is a conversation that we had actually as well the other day, Jonathan, talking about the risk of diagnosis. This is still diagnosis is still very much a risk for many people. For many who are who have multiple marginalized intersections, for our Black and Brown community members, for global majority, for queer, transgender, having a diagnosis oftentimes can be another thing. It's another one of those things that means it's harder to get a job. It's harder to get the support that you need. Getting access to diagnosis is more difficult when you are in a marginalized community. So hearing you talk about that, I know that there will be other people who hear that and who know what that feels like, because it's still very much prevalent today. Folks who are in rural communities who don't have access to a lot of the things that we may have access to in our more urban communities that maybe have a hospital in the area that is doing diagnosis and that sort of thing. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's definitely something that we need to address as a community as a whole for every single member of our community. So thank you very much for that. We are going to wrap up. Yeah, we just have some great comments happening in there. Y'all who are watching, keep your comments coming. Normally, I am able to interact with you during this time, but I really was trying to focus on the panelists and make sure that I was giving full attention there. I will jump over into the comments here in the next day or two and look at those and respond to every single one of those, because you are important and we want you to be here having comments and conversation with us through this process. Rowena, thank you so much for the work that you do, and definitely for keeping going. Representation absolutely matters. I am going to play our outro now, and we will see the rest of y'all later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to WorkEND, a neurodiversity podcast, a monthly live panel discussion coming to you every fourth Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. If you or someone you know would like to be a panelist, be sure to let us know by filling out our Share Your Experience form at umbrellaallianceus.org/take-action. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other Umbrella US events. And finally, if you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To donate to Umbrella US and learn all the latest from us, visit us at umbrellaallianceus.org and follow on your favorite social media platforms. Thanks again. See you next time.